Everybody to the Hot Tag Hooligans Wrestling Podcast Show with myself, Aaron, and Tom. Joining us tonight once again, Aaron Silvers, J.R. Huffman, and they're going to help us break down the top tag teams of 2023. But before we do that, I made mention on our last podcast that I wanted to talk about a subject that kind of happened right around Christmas, and it was kind of big in the wrestling world. We'll talk about the Iron Claw real quick and get everyone's take on the Iron Claw. Everyone has now seen it. Um, Tom, your initial thoughts.
So I'm somebody who didn't live through that era. So what I knew of the whole Von Erich family and all of the things that had happened was very limited. So, I did know a little bit, but I did not know the details on a lot of it. So going into the movie, I didn't know what I was getting into. I really didn't. So I was watching it under, those pretenses that, this is the family that everybody kind of talks about how they were a big deal back in the day. So I really enjoyed the movie because it took me on a journey learning about all these things that, a lot of people already knew. The highs and the very lows, and I just think they did a really good job of telling that story. To my knowledge, I have heard that there are some things that aren't as consistent with the actual story, but I thought they did a very good job of telling a hard to tell story, really, in a way that kept me wanting to continue to watch and enjoy it all the way through, even through some of the heartbreaking moments.
Uh, Me personally, I wanted to give it 4.5 stars on my letterbox, but I gave it four. And one of the reasons is because I did live through it and I did know some of the details. As I do consider myself kind of a wrestling historian. Uh, the fact that they left Chris Von Erich out was a tough call, I guess, for the producers. Supposedly they had him written in for 5 years. If you're going to tell the story, tell the story. And for people who still don't know, there was another brother named Chris Von Erich, and he also committed suicide. They thought it was just going to be too much for a movie like that. I thought the acting was spectacular. Kind of like you. There's not a lot of people around to really debate whether these conversations happened in the movie, didn't happen in the movie. You just kind of have to take it for what it is. I wish that they would have went further into Kerry Von Erich's character. This is one of those movies that if it was 30 minutes longer, I would have been perfectly happy with. I thought Kerry's character felt a little bit rushed. And for someone who was the star of the Von Erich family, to most people in the wrestling world, I felt like his story needed to happen a little bit. They just threw it out there that you had to put two and two together about the motorcycle wreck and him losing the foot instead of actually showing like the motorcycle wreck and showing his troubles with his career after that. But it was excellent, excellent movie. A lot of drama. I went to see it with my son and his girlfriend, who did not know a lot about the Von Erichs, and they both really enjoyed it a lot. There was some sniffling in the theater. None of it was for me. Uh, but
Shocker.
I think it does leave the door open, and I want to see more pro wrestler biopics now. There's so many people, and it doesn't have to be someone like the Ric Flair and the Hulk Hogan. There's some really good stories out there, some talents that could be told, and hopefully this opens the door for it. But yes, great, great movie. Aaron?
Yeah, so I kind of got to the tail end of the Von Erich story growing up. I, of course, seen the Carrie and the Texas Tornado. I've seen more of that than I did the other brothers. But I would say watching that movie opened my eyes to a few different things. You know, I believe looking at that movie, it pretty much said that Kevin was probably the best of the brothers as it related to wrestling talent. But was overlooked multiple times by Dad there in the movie, and of course in real life at this point, was pushing other brothers for whatever reason. But I think we never really got to see, and today Kevin's potential of being a big star, because I feel like he was overshadowed quite a bit in that movie, as it went hand in hand with real life. And I didn't even realize that Kerry Von Erich had lost half his leg there. I never knew that the entire time until that movie. I don't know how I missed that over the years, but definitely some heartbreak in that family. You know, again, Kevin being the talent, in my opinion, Kerry being the one that was pushed for whatever reason. And you know, the other piece that kind of shocked me was I didn't see a lot of the Freebirds. The Freebirds were really a very, very quick, you know, flash in the pan in that movie. And if you hear anybody talk about it over the years, the Freebirds were a huge rival to the Von Erichs in general. I mean, that's something that the Freebirds always talked about, something that the Von Erichs always talk about. And it's just something that was shocked me that we didn't see more of the Freebirds in that movie. Um, Not just movie, but it just in general, that movie kind of pointed out the fact of, you know, Kevin's wife. I've drawn a blank on her name right now, but Kevin's wife, you know, had to be a pretty strong woman to stick with him through all that heartache, all that process that was going on with that family, and all the time that he was spending in the wrestling business. And it made her out to be a very strong woman from start to finish in that movie. And I think again, it was a great movie. Even if you're not a wrestling fan, I definitely encourage anybody to see that if it's still in theaters now or if it belongs to streaming here soon. It's not just a wrestler's movie. It's a good story. So I'd say 4 stars or above. Also, Aaron, on that if we're giving stars to it, but definitely a great movie.
Yeah.
All right. So just like you, Aaron, I lived through this. I was a teenager, a young teenager at this time. So, you know, being a wrestling fan since a very young age, probably 4 or 5 years old, um, you know, I'd seen many, you know, I've always been a face favorite. I've always loved the face, the baby face. I've always, you know, cheered for the baby face and booed the heels. That's just the way I've always been. But Kevin Von Erich was, he was a little bit plain to me. I watched him a lot in World Class, and I watched a lot of you know, the matches down in Texas. I saw those on TV as well. But there was a couple of scenes in there where they were in small arenas and it looked a little smoky and things like that. That took me back to my childhood because I remember going to the National Guard Armory at different places and places like that and seeing that electricity in just a small crowd like that. So it brought that realism back to me. It's almost like I could feel like myself being there. And that was one of the main moments that stood out to me. Aaron was talking about Aaron Silvers. Aaron Silvers was talking about a strong woman. What about the mother? To lose all of those children and still be hanging in there, I couldn't imagine that. Kudos to Kevin's wife, though. I agree with Aaron on that part, but you know, and then I never really heard Kevin or any talk about the curse or that. I never knew, but the way they brought that forward, it made me think maybe they were cursed. It brought me into the sense in that movie and made me think about, and you said something about adding extra time. This is what I thought of. I think something that would have truly brought that story out is a 10-part series instead of a movie. Because I think then you could have really unpacked and unraveled a lot of things and saw more of the Freebirds and saw more of Kerry and saw more of those connections, you know, connected those dots together. And I hope that, you know, going forward, they do more material on wrestling, but I hope it is formatted, even if it's in a short series, like a 6-part series or something like that, to where it has those connecting dots and it's not just a movie. But I get the movie aspect of it. And I give it at least a 4-star as well.
Yeah. Yeah, like you're talking about that, you know, MJF was Lance Von Erich, and they just barely threw him in there. I mean, tell the story about why there's a Lance Von Erich. And also, you know, a lot of people don't know Fritz's wife ended up leaving him before Kerry, you know, shot himself. Talk about that struggle a little bit. I mean, maybe there will be a director's cut. Sometimes when stuff comes out on DVD, there's a longer version stuff that they kind of cut out. But yeah, a great movie. Um, real quick? Who's a wrestler that you all would like to see, kind of like a Iron Claw type movie done on? Aaron?
Honestly, hate to be the guy that's do this, but Hogan. Hogan's my guy. That's no secret. But I really think that seeing an actual life story of him would be great.
Well,
There's so many good options there. I think over the years they've tried to do some of those things that they didn't really go deep like they did with the Von Erich movie. But maybe I don't know. I'm such a big fan. I would want to see anything that they would put out. But to really think about it on the spot, I just think of, stories that I want to know more about. And one of them that comes to mind is Jimmy Snuka. Not that they would know everything that they would need to know to be able to put that out in a way that it needs to be. But I think about some of the things that we kind of know things about, but we don't know the full story. And that's what would intrigue me and would make me want to watch, is something like that.
there was three of them that came to mind for me. Bruiser Brody would be very, very interesting. The Hart family, kind of like the Iron Claw and and then Eddie Guerrero, I think would be very good because he had a lot of
Yeah.
highs and lows. So those are the three for me. JR.
There's talk about the success of the Iron Claw. Eddie Guerrero's name was mentioned at them kind of moving forward with another movie of that. So I just wanted to add that into what you said. I'm kind of like Tom. I've kind of put on the spot. I'm going to pick one that's not with us anymore and one that still is. Just like Aaron's guy is Hogan, I would love to see Sting. I would love to see a movie about all of the elements, all the way from the time he got into wrestling and what that looks like. And I would also like to see the uprise, the coming forth of Bray Wyatt and that character development, being in the family with Mike Rotunda and Barry Windham, and how his training went, and kind of those changes, that evolution. That kind of interests me if we're, thinking off the top of our heads right now.
So,
That's a great pick.
Yeah, that's a great choice, JR. Never thought about that one.
Did he have a movie like that?
Who's
When
that?
he was Sting, when he was with TNA?
He had a movie. If I did, I missed it. But he had a movie. It was that was about him finding God and things like that.
Okay.
Because I used to own that, but it was more about the end part of him getting into giving up the things that kind of haunted him. I'd just like to see kind of in the beginning, kind of a prequel going into the evolution of Sting, what got him to that character, and all the elements that kind of follow, and those characters and the wrestlers that were with that. I guess that's
No, he's
kind of what I
not.
was looking for.
I know he's not popular, but Ultimate Warrior would be good too.
And
Agreed.
he would be in there because him and Sting were partners in the beginning, and they were roommates and things like that too.
Or even Savage.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Especially
So
being
learning
a
together and make
shortstop
a
for the
movie.
Reds.
Let's make a movie. That's what we need to do. We need to get together and make a movie.
Like, we can do it.
All right. 2023 was kind of an up and down year for tag teams. A lot of start stops, a lot of big moments for some tag teams, and then back to mediocrity. So before we get going on our top five, our 6 through 10s, we don't really go into explanation on this, but I'll start off with my 10 through 6. My number 10 was The Acclaimed. My number 9 was FTR. That's going to make some people mad. Number 8 for me was Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. Number 7 for me was Tony D'Angelo and Stax, the NXT Tag Team Champions. They had a really good year. And number 6 for me was the Creed Brothers. Aaron, you're 10 through 6.
Yep. Number 10 for me is the BCC. Number 9 for me is the Gun Club. Number 8 is Aussie Open. 7, House of Black. And 6, FTR.
Tom, 10 to 6.
All right, my number 10 is Cody and Jay. The best 2 weeks of the year. My number 9 is Pretty Deadly. they went from a team I didn't want to even see on my screen to someone that I find very entertaining. Number 8 is MK Ultra over on Impact. My number 7 is FTR. And my number 6 is Judgment Day's Finn and Damian Priest.
So if you saw my face when he said Jay and Cody, I think he knew that I was going to give him some crap for that. At least you did not have that in your top 5. I was really afraid you're going to have them in top 5. Listen, I love them together, but they only had a 9-day title
2 weeks,
reign.
yeah,
It was only for 3 weeks. You couldn't put it. So for me, yeah, good picks there. Good picks. I think we're gonna get some hate from some FTR fans. I have a feeling. All right, JR, 10 through 6.
All right. I think me and Aaron had the same brain for a while because this is going to sound like I'm copying him, but I obviously did not. Number 10, I had Aussie Open. Number 9, I had Blackpool Combat Club, Brian Danielson, and Claudio or Wheeler. Gun Club, number 8. And this is kind of a tag team that kind of had an injured person, but it was one of my favorite. It was Juice Robinson and Jay White. I really loved that combination until Juice got hurt. Number 6, Lucha Brothers.
A lot of wildness there. All right, Aaron, here we go. Number 5.
Number 5 for me, if you know me that well, it's no secret that's one of my favorite up-and-coming tag teams around right now in any organization. They're one of the most exciting teams on TV, in my opinion. They had some great feuds with the Alpha Academy when they jumped to the main roster. They were great in NXT. That it's got to be the Creed brothers for me, number 5. No, they haven't won any titles yet, but it's just a matter of time. I mean, if we go hog wild with the tag team division again, like we should in wrestling, especially WWE, the Creed brothers should be in that top 5 to be one of those contenders. I mean, pure athleticism, awesome guys, power and speed. You know, just exciting to watch. Anytime they're on TV, I had to watch, whether it was a title match or whatever the case may be. But you know, I know they started out with Roderick Strong and the Diamond Mine, but you know, they didn't need that, in my opinion. They've carved their own way, and I want to see some more of the Creed brothers in the upcoming years. I put them at my number 5.
Okay. Well, the Creed brothers were my number 6. You know, they did not make my top 5, but I agree with everything you said. And I think a couple of years ago, when they were in NXT tearing it up, I think they made mine on Tom's list then, and then they kind of fell off. Last year they kind of fell off a little bit and weren't given opportunities as much. I'm glad that they're on the main roster. They hit the ground running up there. There's still something. I love them with Ivy now, but there's something missing. I don't know if I like them more as a heel tag team. Maybe that's what it is that's missing for me. But yes, great year by the Creed brothers. Absolutely. All right, Tom, you're number 5.
So my number 5 is Chelsea and Piper. You know, I think they had a great year. And looking at the tag team division all the way around, I feel like they actually gave them storylines. They actually gave them something entertaining to do week to week for the majority of that time. And they were with Piper. Chelsea was tag team champion a little bit longer, you know, because of the Sonya Deville injury. But they ran 4 months with just the 2 of them, you know, and then also, you know, with that is also half of the tag team champions is Matt Cardona. So how is it not in your top 5? So they were my pick for number 5. Very entertaining this year.
If they weren't on anybody else's, do y'all want to comment on them?
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you, Tom or Aaron, either one with it being on your list. Chelsea, it's kind of a rough break that she lost her first tag team partner to begin the year, but Chelsea's been gold since she's been on that roster, in my opinion. Some folks think she's annoying, and that's all they got to say about her. But I'm just here to tell you she's doing her job, because that's what they want you to be. They want us to say that she's annoying and she's that heel that nobody wants to see. So she's doing awesome. I'm not a huge Piper fan, but I can't deny they're great together, and didn't think that was going to be the case.
Yeah, a tag, and like I said, they were my number 8, but a tag team that was thrown together out of, just needing something. And I really think this was the better combination than Chelsea and Sonya. And I think it worked out better. I hated that, for Sonya to have gotten hurt and everything of that nature, but this really worked out well. I hated that they just lost the titles to Katana Chance and Caden Carter because they kind of came out of nowhere for me. But they were bringing a lot of notoriety to the women's tag team championships, and that's something that we've been really wanting to happen. So glad to have them on the list. All right, JR, you're number 5.
I just want to say something about Piper and Chelsea
Okay, go
real
ahead.
quick.
Yeah.
I didn't want to talk over anybody. When it comes to Chelsea, she came in there. Each one of those come from other organizations. She was kind of slated to be a single star. That annoying Karen character, kind of, I need to speak to your manager, and she could have got stuck in that bubble. Maybe they pitched something to her. She pitched something to them. Hey, move me into a tag element, and she was able to run with that. She comes out with different her outfits, just her outfits and the way that she responds through those outfits and her character development. I think that's amazing. I've been following Piper. Not a truly big fan of her, but she's been wrestling for a long time. She's got a lot of experience under her belt. Um, I loved her in the Mae Young Classic. She had a lot of athleticism, and she was wrestling against a lot of different styles and a lot of different girls that weren't her size. So I got to give her kudos for that, and for them to actually make the tag team. And there's sometimes I don't remember who the ladies tag team champions are, but the whole time that they've had the titles, I have remembered that. So that says something about what they did with those titles. I just want to say that. My number 5 is the Acclaimed. Very entertaining. They push the envelope a lot. Fans love them. They hear their music kick, everybody goes nuts. So as far as their longevity, for the most part, they've all stayed healthy. Adding Billy Gunn with him or without him, I think they would still be very popular. He does bring, their catchphrase out the way that they want it to. But I got them, the Acclaimed as my number 5.
I think after the last year, I would have expected the Acclaim to be in my top 5. But they weren't being used there for such a long time. I feel like they didn't have something for them to do. Uh, and I'm glad that they gave them the trios title. I think that they have done a pretty decent job with that. But it's just one of those things, and I feel like AEW is such a vacuum where they've got these champions and nothing's really going on with it. And I think that really hurt them. And for a team that was skyrocketing to the top, who have booked right, probably could have been a number 1. I just felt like it was a down year for them. They still made my list at number 10, though. All right. So my number 5 is an oldie but goodie. Captured the GCW Tag Team Championships this year and the Impact Tag Team Championships, and they're still one of the best tag teams on planet Earth. And they really had a rejuvenate year. It's the Motor City Machine Guns. Um, you know, for almost over a decade plus now, Shelley and Sabin have been what tag team wrestling should have continued to be for a lot of promotions. And they give it their all every time. And not only that, they also broke off as single stars this year, even though that doesn't factor into these ratings for me. But the capture 2 prestigious tag team titles this year and hold on to them and help elevate some of the younger talent in Impact Wrestling and in GCW as well. They take my number 5 spot, the Motor City Machine Guns. All right, no comments on them.
The
All
only
right.
thing I'll say is, they are 2 of probably some of the best tag team wrestlers as far as their experience and their technical ability. Just for me, they didn't make my top 10 because they're not my favorite flavor, if that makes any sense. There's so many talented tag teams out there that there's probably 25 deserving of a top 10 list. But for my personal flavor, they don't make the top 10.
Yeah, they for me, you said oldie but goodie, and I agree with that. I mean, watching TNA / Impact in their heyday in the early 2000s, in my opinion, I hope they get back to it. But anyway, that tag team was one that stuck out to me, especially their feuds with Beer Money and things over the years. I definitely was a huge fan of the Motor City Machine Guns back when. Not really kept up on them lately, but I'm glad to see that they're back together and winning titles again. So it's pretty awesome.
You know, the one thing about Motor City Machine Guns for me, it's if you had Ricky Morton teaming with beautiful Bobby Eaton. I mean, those two guys, I mean, they're two fantastic tag wrestlers, and they both had great singles careers as well. And I think they're this generation's Bobby Eaton if he tagged with Ricky Morton. So
It's a good way
that's a
of putting
pretty
it.
darn good compliment. Yeah, that's a good compliment there. So, all right, Aaron, you're number 4.
Yeah, so mine is the Acclaimed actually, for a lot of the same reasons that we heard for the number fives of some of y'all. Acclaim for me was really red hot coming into 2023, and it seemed like the air was let out of their balloon about a couple months into the year. So of course they were champs all the way up until February, as far as tag champs, and then like I said, the helium in the balloon was let out for some reason, and I'm on the fence about what's going on there, but either way, Acclaimed had to be in my top five just because of how they started out the year and how over they were, in my opinion. And it's not to say a lot of questions I have with some AEW booking right now, and that's one of those things.
All right. Tom, you're number 4.
So my number 4 is also the Acclaimed, for some of the same reasons. You know, they started, like he said, they started the year off hot and then cooled off. But then they picked it up again, and I think this year is going to be a big year for them if they don't drop the ball again. But I think the storyline with Billy kind of stepping away a little bit and thinking that he was dragging them down to coming back and being a part of them to the trio championships. I just really think they're a great act and an entertaining part of AEW. And they did have a great year. If if they would have had that down point be a high point for them, they could have been number 1 in my book. But since they had, those months where they kind of fell off the face of the earth, it dropped them down on my list some. But they are so talented and so entertaining that they still made my top 5.
All right, JR, you're number 4.
All right, me and Sylvie's playing ping pong here. My number 4 team is the Creed Brothers. And the reason I got a few different things to add to that, I love their athleticism. I love that when they push on the gas, they take off. I guess I love the Creed Brothers also for the future because I believe they are going to be one of the future tag teams. They will be tag team champions. Something that you mentioned earlier, you didn't know, there's something maybe missing. I think they need a small wardrobe tweak. Now, I don't mean that they need to get rid of the singlets and get rid of but I think there needs to be a hybrid presentation of the collegiate because it really doesn't make sense to have all of those amazing moves and have that collegiate format because there's not a lot of that collegiate wrestling in the ring. That's just my take from that. I think if you package them a little bit differently, visually, I think that may be a good start. It may be something, a footprint going forward that they may be able to, move differently. Maybe they do need to be a heel tag team. But right now, I don't believe there's a lot of focus on the tag team division, even though they're storyline wise. Because I know there's at least a tag or maybe 2 or 3 tags in every program that's on television every week. But where is the storylines? How does it make sense? I mean, if you're going to have those individuals that have those storylines, those tag teams have to make sense as well. And I think we really want to see a strong tag team division in 2024 in any company. They're going to have to do a better job at, building those storylines. But that's Creed Brothers, my number 4.
All right, my number 4 is a tag team that I think is one of the best, well presented tag teams whenever they are actually on television. Every member can wrestle, and I think they're superstars and they could be big money, and that's the House of Black. Um, captured the trios titles, held them for a very long time. From the moment their music hits, walking down to the ring, your eyes are on them. And every member of that group can go. Julia Hart has stepped up as well to make that faction slash group an amazing group. They had a great year. I need to see more of them on my television. Kind of lost in the shuffle sometimes as well. I don't like it at all. But when they are together, and like I said, they had a fantastic year. Good feuds with FTR to close out kind of the year. They claimed, certain teams, the House of Black, number 4 for me.
So the House of Black for me didn't make my top 10, but I feel like they're just missing storylines that I care about. Just my personal preference. They look fantastic. They're all fantastic in the ring. They've had great matches. Just not for me the most entertaining based upon what they were given. So like I said, there could be 25 teams that are deserving of the top 10. And for me, they just didn't make mine.
I think with them though, they're a main event act. Like all around. I mean, they really could be a main event act if someone would give them the opportunity to be it. And it's just so crowded in AEW. You got certain people who are going to push, and I think that's part of the problem as well.
I agree with that, Aaron. It's I know I put them a little lower on my list, but that House of Black, if you've been to any wrestling show or any wrestling get together, that is a wrestling fans team. That is a rock star type team with the metal edge. If they just let it go, let it happen. It reminds me of the old Brood. It could be the modern day Brood if they let it just roll with it. It's kind of aggravating to see how great they could be, and it's just not happening.
All right, Aaron, you're number 3.
Yeah, so number 3 for me, had to put them on here from April to September. We're champs. That's going to be Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Had a great 2023, as their accolades say so, but also some great storylines with them, especially starting out with the Bloodline and them coming together. Even though we were kind of iffy on whether they were going to come together toward the first of the year, but Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, not only one-on-one chemistry, but chemistry as a team was just even better. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, they complement each other very well. Not just in the wrestling side of things, but also, personality and mic skills. Not just their wrestling, but their some of their stuff on the mic was entertaining throughout the year. When you think about the Kevin Owens being the one that's full of hate all the time and Sami having to calm him down all the time, it was just comical to me. It's one of those things that, Kevin, I chuckle a little bit because Kevin, he played the game of, I'm not mad, quit telling me to calm down, that kind of thing. And it was just comical over the time. But Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn for me, for a lot of reasons.
You're number 3.
My number 3 is Gallus. I look at a team who always has the great match, that hard-hitting style that they're a team that I want to watch wrestle almost like they're in a fight. And I really like that. And they were very successful in 2023. I believe it was almost 6 months as champions. So when I look at, I don't always base my opinion off of if you're a champion or not, but I look at how successful they were in NXT this year. And also, for a lot of times this past year in NXT, there wasn't a lot that I wanted to watch. Just storylines or whatever was going on, wasn't all that into it. But I always enjoyed watching their matches because of how hard hitting they were. So I had to put them at number 3 on my list because of their success and the fact that I want to watch them and watch their matches.
Gallus was actually number 11 for me. I don't know if y'all could see that. Gallus was actually number 11 for me. They were close to making my list. I had made a list of 15 teams that I thought were the best 15, and then I kind of decided. Um, for me, they missed the cut just because I never got the storyline that I wanted. I think Wolfgang and the Coffees are fantastic. They're that hard hitting style that you want to see. I needed something to make me care about them on TV outside of they're getting one up on somebody. But they were close. They were actually my number 11. But good pick. Good pick. Anybody
All
else got
right.
anything on Gallus?
Well, I was going to say something about Gallus. They actually are my number 11 pick. I have a list of where I cut them off. I've been watching them since they were in NXT UK, been following probably about 5 years. And one thing to add to Tom's point about Gallus is all three of those are incredible wrestlers. They either can go technical or they can, they've got that strong style. And I love that British strong style, especially if you can back it up and you can make some points with it. And they can go technical or they can go hardcore either way. And I really liked, and again, if you've seen any of them, you can split them off, put them into individual matches, and you'll still get, as Sheamus and them say, you'll still get a banger out of them. So I like that they're interchangeable, and I do like Gallus for that. We done number 3s yet?
Hold on. We're talking about Gallus real quick. One thing that it would help them is if they brought my girl Marley Spartan in. I mean, it's Wolfgang's wife. Bring her in and let her be part of that group because she's somebody who brings the strong style as well. I think that could be the missing piece. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Bring Molly Spartan to NXT to join Gallus.
That's the main
Forgot all
roster
about her.
team right there. You bring them straight
Yep.
to the main roster with her.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on there, but oh well. All right, JR, you're number 3.
All right. So my number 3, it's been mentioned. We've been just kind of playing musical chairs here. My number 3 is the House of Black. A lot of points that you had. I still don't think Buddy Matthews has ever been used the way that he should have been, whether it was in WWE or in AEW. He is in a caliber all of his own. And I think they hindered them by putting a 6-man tag on them. They should have been world champs by now. Brody King, I wasn't sold on him when he came in, but he grabbed me very quickly, and that man's a beast. And I love his athleticism for being a big man. If you know anything about me, I have been an Aleister Black / Malachi Black fan from day one. I have wanted to see his Undertaker type presentation and entrance move forward. They had different plans, went in a different direction. And they had something I believe was cooking with him when he came to AEW, especially after the Cody Rhodes part thing, the feud with him. And they missed the mark. But just like you all said, I think they did a great job throughout the year as tag teams. And I would have loved to have seen them wear those tag team championships because they were more than well deserving of that. And that's my number 3.
All right. My number 3 was also Sammy and KO. To have that WrestleMania moment, I know it was special for them. I could only imagine how special it was for those two to get that. And let's be honest, I think we all believe it was all an accident that they got to that point. It wasn't what was planned months out, but they both got hot at the right time, and everything fell all together. But then they did a great job. Kind of losing the titles kind of came out of nowhere. But there was times earlier on that there was talk that they were going to take it from them like the next month. But they were able to hold on to them for a while. Finally split them up. But overall, to me, that WrestleMania moment for me and was what got them to number 3. So, all right, Aaron, number 2.
Number 2 for me is I'm going to kind of steal what Tom likes to say sometimes is I had to have these guys on my list because they made me care. They made me care all year long about a storyline that really, I mean, it could have been one that I didn't care about, but they made it comical and kept things going, and they put two people together that I didn't think would ever be together, and that was MJF and Adam Cole. Them as a tag team was gold, entertainment from start to finish. I mean, you talk about the goofy vignettes they did. You talk about the title run they had. You talk about the storyline leading up to where they're at now. You talk about a team, not just the team, but individually. You've got MJF, doing double duty on a pay-per-view or a PLE at this point, I guess, doing his titles or his tag title match, then doing his single title match on the same show. That speaks volumes. Again, you can't help but notice what they've done all year long. That's why they had to be my number two. At times, it's sad to say, but was probably the most interesting thing on AEW the entire year. At times, they made me care to watch AEW. I had to see those segments when they were on there, so I had to put them at number two. And I'm looking forward to see where I guess 2024 goes for both of those fellas. I'm still on the fence on where MJF's going to end up, or if it's are we going to see him back in AEW? We shall see.
They did not make my top 10, and they probably would not have made my top 15. And the reason why is because I don't think they wrestled enough together. You're talking about all the skits and the storylines and things like that, but that was more for me to progress along the world title picture instead of what the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship should have been. And of course, Adam Cole did get hurt, and that kind of ruined a lot of those plans that they had set in stone. And for me, that's why they did not make my top 15. But I get why you put them there.
Right.
So they were actually on my list at 11 when I was trying to break things down and figure out. And the reason why that they didn't make my 10 was exactly what Aaron said. With Adam Cole getting hurt and them not being able to wrestle as much together, they dropped off of my list. But as far as being entertaining, if you think back to my my rankings for the males for the year, and I had MJF for that reason, was because he was the only thing carrying AEW for me. And a lot of that had to do with him and Adam Cole. So I 100% agree with what you're saying. It's a very valid point. Just for my list, I tried to go with the tag teams that were active more often than just storyline skits and stuff like that. But I totally get it because I'm right there with you as far as it being one of the only entertaining things that really made me want to pay attention to AEW.
All right, Tom, you're number two.
So my number two is the greatest tag team of all time, and that's the Usos. In my opinion, even though they were only together from January to WrestleMania, they're the greatest tag team of all time, right? So for me, they made my list at number two because if they were together all year, they would have probably been my number one. They never have a bad match. It's always match of the night for me. Everything they do is entertaining from start to finish. Everything that they do. My favorite right now in 2024, they're my favorite tag team of all time. So I had to put them on the list, but they didn't make my number one because of how long they were actually together in the year.
Okay. I'll hop on here too. The Usos are also in my number two for what you said, but they were together longer than that because they were together all the way until the Money in the Bank Premium Live event where they wrestled the
You're right.
Bloodline. So they were actually together for almost 7 months. Right before SummerSlam is when they broke apart, and that's why they are. They are the greatest tag team of all time. I'll go ahead and say that. And this year they took it to a whole other level. and that was main eventing night one of WrestleMania, and also getting some main events on some premium live events. Uh, it's a shame that they have broken up, but it's also been good for at least one of them right now. Though Jimmy is showing a lot of comedic side over on SmackDown, but I feel like he's just lost in the shuffle now. But they also got my number two spot as well. Uh, for the first 4 months, they were the tag team all the way up until WrestleMania, and then afterwards, as they were battling the Bloodline, they were right there as well. So for me, that's why they were my number two.
To clarify, what I meant was as far as being tag team champions until WrestleMania.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so you guys got some valid points there. That they were together longer than I thought. Also, I'm glad you reminded us of that, Aaron, because I only thought it was a few months. Also, I'm going to say, this is probably the only year recently that I'm able to keep them off of my list. I'm going to have to say though, Tom, I can't say greatest of all time. I'm kind
In
of a
my
historian.
opinion.
Yeah, I'm a historian like Aaron, and there are some greats over the years. I'll tell you, even we're talking Road Warriors, we're talking Steiners, we're talking Hart Foundation. Ooh, it's hard to say greatest of all time. It's kind of like the Michael Jordan, LeBron James comparison, and I know we won't get into that on this, but it's that. But Usos are great when they're together. I definitely agree.
I call them more of a Mount Rushmore. The Usos would definitely be on the Mount Rushmore. That way you've got more people that's at the top. You don't have to argue over who's number one. That's the way I kind of look at it.
We should do a greatest of all time tag teams episode and really get
Can we
into the
do that?
nitty gritty of why someone is the greatest of all time.
I will say this. I was kind of on the fence for the last couple of years. They were starting to become my favorites for a few years, and I had told Tom that. But they solidified themselves this year for being the greatest of all time for me, because all those other tag teams that you're talking about, one piece was never as good as the other. It just wasn't. Anvil was nowhere close to Brett. You look at
flip flopped, but okay.
you got the Road Warriors. They were good for what they did. These two guys went out and main evented night one of WrestleMania and headlined one of the biggest drawing events in the company's history. And as a single stars, have broken off to both shine. And these are guys that were stuck in mediocrity a few years ago. And they stuck with it, and they stuck with their characters. And tag team wrestling wise, they're right there. They're right there. But as money draws, there ain't a tag team that's drawing more money than the Usos. Greatest of all time. End of conversation. All right, Aaron, you're number two.
Number two. I think I already said it actually, so we're at number one.
Who was your number two?
MJF and Adam Cole.
Okay. And then Tom said his. Okay, JR, you're number two.
Well, I was going to do two and one together if I had to. So for my number two, this is an unpopular opinion on this call here, but it's FTR. They've been solid throughout the whole year for me. When I hear their music hit, I'm going to watch their match. I'm not going to flip through it. I'm not going to skip it. And again, I can't base it on how they've been booked because they bring it every time that the bell rings. They don't back off. They give it 110%. The story is there if they're used correctly. They got to have the right opponents. I think when we lost Jay Briscoe a couple years ago, a year and a half ago, that was something that if they could have gotten that worked out, that would have been a huge feud. That would have really propelled the tag team division in AEW with a lot of different tag teams. And they've had some setbacks, but they're still my number two pick for 2023.
So I knew I'd catch some flack with FTR, and they were PWI's top tag team of the year. there's no doubt when the bell rings, like you're talking about, they're great. I just never care about who they're feuding with and what they're doing. And it's always been that way, even when they're in the WWE. When they're in the ring, by gosh, there may not be many teams on this planet that are better than them.
They got the best finisher of any tag team out there, in my
But
opinion.
but nothing ever matters because no one will ever give them anything to matter. They're they're vanilla in that sense. And I get it. It's fists, not flips. That's that used to be their thing. But I think we're in this era of wrestling where we want to be entertained going into a match as well. And that's where they miss the mark. They'll entertain me when they're in the ring, entertain me to get to that match. So they were number 9 for me. And I like FTR. I've always liked them. I've always thought they were totally misused in everything that they do. Uh, so
Yeah, I have them on my list as number 7. And next to their name, everybody on the list I would jot down just a little bit that kind of explains what they are. And for them, I have down best technicians. And I think that sums up FTR. They're the best technicians. But they're not, for me, overall, the best tag team this year or any year, because of like what Aaron said. I don't think that they've given him anything to really sink their teeth into, except for I'm the greatest tag team. They believe what they're saying, and inside the ropes, technician wise, they probably are. But it's more than that for me, and I lean way heavily on the entertainment versus the technical. I love being entertained. That's what I love about pro wrestling. Don't get me wrong. I love smash mouth, hard hitting, strong style, technical wrestling. I love it all. But when you've got all these other tag teams out there, they always rank higher than somebody that's just a technician for me.
So yeah, JR, I had them on my 6 as my 6, and FTR to me, to Tom's point there, it's not a wrestling fan of today's team, if you want to put it that way. I mean, that's really the only way I can describe it. And they're also not an organization that really caters to that style. They're in an organization that caters to spot fest type wrestling, where the crowd pops for different spots rather than technician. I compare them to the Arn and Tollys of the late 80s, early 90s. I compare them to, the Hart Foundation. I compare them to the Malenkos. Dean Malenko, one of my favorites over the years. That kind of wrestling, I love FTR. But the booking and the fan of today doesn't cater as much to them as what they would have back in the early to mid 90s, just in my opinion. But great pick. And there's a reason why. I mean, the accomplishments speak for themselves, but it's just, unfortunately, they just never end up on the right side of the book.
before we go to number 1, Aaron, give me a tag team to look forward to in 2024.
Well, I already mentioned Creed Brothers as one, but I'm going to put somebody not on my list that Tom mentioned, and it's Pretty Deadly. I think a lot of folks right now are under the I guess the moniker that they're an annoying tag team, and why are they on the main roster, and why this and why that. They're doing their job, and they're going to be a tag champ probably this year on the main roster, if I had to guess. And they are entertaining, whether we want to say it or not. I look at myself as early teenager, late young, and what I was entertained by back then. Kids today are probably entertained by what Pretty Deadly's doing, and that's the way I look at it. But you can't deny what Pretty Deadly's going to be capable of doing. Plus, they're actually pretty good in the ring. So I definitely look forward to seeing what they're going to do. I've gotten to the point where I got past the hey, they're annoying, to where I can actually laugh at some of the stuff they're doing. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, Pretty Deadly's one for me as well. But if packaged right, Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate could be a force to reckon with.
Could be.
Yep.
It looks like they're going to go away from this Butch persona and give him back Pete Dunne, and he's teaming with Tyler Bate. That could be very, very good. Now, kind of like FTR, they're really vanilla in a way, so they're going to have to do something really creative with them to get them over. That's a team I would watch along with Pretty Deadly. Tom?
So I actually wrote down 3, so I'll name them off real quick. So the Creed brothers were one of them. For all the reasons that you had, Aaron, you had them in your top. And I had the Street Profits. I really think that this year could be a big year for them. Going in the right direction now. If they've established everything they need to with their gimmick with Bobby Lashley and all that, I'm looking for them to be very successful this year. And the other team is the AOP. You know, with them just getting back to the WWE, I look for them to utilize them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have even put them on TV. Now, I hope that that's the case. We all know the starts and stops with Karrion Kross, and we've all been disappointed and let down so many times by what they start to do with them and then do nothing. So hopefully they pull it all together since AOP is with them now and they actually get that group a push and do something very good with them. But I say push them to the moon, and there's a lot that they can do. Yeah, there's only one set of tag team championships, but that doesn't mean you can't have a stellar division on both Raw and SmackDown, and eventually have the top teams challenge for the title. They've got enough great tag teams that they can really make that division stand tall if they'll actually put the time and effort into the storylines.
Tom, I hope you're right on the AOP. I'm on the same thing with Karrion Kross and Scarlett, and them being that's just there's so much there, and
Big gamble.
They only got Ellering, in the mix. One of the greatest managers of all time, one of them. So I hope you're right with AOP.
JR, yours?
This is a long shot. There's something there. I don't know what it is, but there's something about this tag team. Out the mud in NXT. There's something about these dudes. That's with Scripps, formerly Reggie. I don't know what it is about these gangster guys, but I'm telling you, there's something there. I don't know what it is, but if you guys if you flipped over their matches, you haven't watched them, watch their ring work, watch their presence, their character development. There's something there. I don't know if they'll ever make anything out of it, but there's something that tells me they're going to make some waves in 2024. I don't know what it is.
Definitely got a great look to them. I had an idea. We're talking about the tag division. I think every premium live event, the tag titles need to be whoever the champion is needs to defend them in a triple threat match with a team from Raw and a team from SmackDown in the mix. That way, whoever wins it, the belt could go back and forth. But you build up contenders on both brands for maybe not every premium live, but I think that's a pretty good idea. Start making that kind of triple threat in a way. And I think it could maybe bring some more eyes to that. All right, here we are. Number 1. Let's go, Aaron.
All right. Well, I don't know if very many people can deny this one or not. They're one of the most entertaining things we've had all year, and undeniable. And still going today is the Judgment Day. In a number of mixes, Judgment Day has really popped off this year. Of course, their current tag champs. All of that group is pretty solid. All the way from Dom, that's getting more heat than anybody in the business. You've got Rhea, that's dominant and great, regardless of whether she's a heel or not. Everybody still loves Rhea, or Mommy, if you want to call her that. You have Priest and Finn. I mean, great. Finn's great. His work speaks for itself. And then, Priest, to me, has been one of those guys that I'm just continue to wait on him to break out and start running titles. But Judgment Day for me as a whole is awesome. And now they're adding a little bit of comedy to it with R-Truth, which is pretty great too. So if you didn't get a chance to watch Raw yet, I mean, that's, part of that match. It was kind of hard for anybody to keep a straight face during that match with R-Truth involved. So it's awesome that Judgment Day is showing a little bit of their adaptability or their flexibility on what they can do rather than just being a straight heel. We're seeing a lot of different sides of them, but Judgment Day for me has to be number one.
Finn and Damien were also my number one. For the reasons kind of what you said. It's just, I think so many of us wanted WWE to do something with Finn Balor, and we wanted WWE to do something with Damian Priest, and we would have thought it would all work together. And they had a really good year. Their match quality was fantastic. Their character work was even better overall. I had Dominic even on my top five male wrestlers of the year. He was number five for me. And I never thought I would have Dominic Mysterio in a top five category, but his year was spectacular. The stuff with R-Truth now, I think it's going to help elevate them to another level as well. I do feel like their tag team days are going to be coming up really soon, though. But for this year, multiple times tag team champions, great storylines. They basically dominated Raw for the whole year. For me, Judgment Day was number one. Tom?
What I'll say about Judgment Day is I had them at number 6. They had a fantastic year, but they're just not my favorite. They're just not. I mean, the best thing about the Judgment Day is R-Truth, and that just started this year for me. I mean, I'm a big Finn Balor fan, and I'm a big Damian Priest fan on their own, but I've been annoyed with the Judgment Day from the beginning. Now, I love Rhea Ripley. I love what they're doing with Dominic. But as far as Finn and Priest, they just don't make it that high on the list because I'm more annoyed with them than anything. Now they're talented. I'm not taking that away from any of them. They're number 6 out of 10, and a list full of great tag teams. So I don't want to say anything negative. Just for me, their characters and storylines didn't do it for me to make it in my top 5.
What about Tom and Nick? You didn't say nothing about them.
That's 2024. Tom and Nick would probably be all over it.
Yeah, Tom and Nick just showed up this year for Judgment Day, so yeah. All right, you're number one, Tom. Let's go.
My number 1 is KO and Sammy for all the reasons everybody has already talked about. Main event in WrestleMania, just a great moment, and a run for almost 5 months as champion. So, I mean, for me, they just took the cake. That's my flavor of ice cream is KO and Sami Zayn. I love both of those characters, always have. Huge KO fan. Sammy, I became a fan of later on than originally when his stuff with NXT, I just thought he was a great wrestler. But the more his character developed on the main roster, I just became a huge mark for Sami Zayn. So you put them two together and have them run and the chemistry together. If they have a year like they did last year, I mean, that's a number 1 spot in my book. It checks all the boxes.
They are your number 1.
My number 1, no secret, just like you and Aaron Silver's Judgment Day. The interchangeable parts. And I have noticed a trend throughout this podcast is that we've had a lot of highlights and ranked our tag teams based on who's been champion. You talk about Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. You talk about the Usos. You have to add Priest and Finn in there as well. So that says a lot about whoever the champion is. It brings a lot of attention to how you rank those people. Now, I just kind of wanted to bring that to that, but all the points you all made, entertaining. They're always doing something there. They are my flavor. I do like them. I haven't said anything about Sammy and Kevin, but I will say that their moment was the Cody Rhodes finishing the story moment because they came back together. They got to basically take his moment because that was the greatest moment in tag team wrestling in 2023. That absolutely solidified my entire WrestleMania weekend was seeing them win those titles and being best friends. There was a beautiful story to that. So I have to give them kudos for that. But Again, Judgment Day is my tag team of the year. But it was a hard choice among all of those. All great contenders vying for that #1 spot for me.
And as always, if anyone wants to leave us your top 5 in the comments, please do so. We always welcome those as well. And sometimes people will bring up somebody maybe we didn't even think of, and somewhere along the line. So it's always interesting to see everyone else's opinions as well. 2023 awards are now officially over for the Hot Tag Hooligans Wrestling Podcast Show. We've already had our male show, our female, and now the tag team. And our next time we'll be on air, Tom and I will be joined by Ella J to do our Royal Rumble predictions. But before we let you go, real quick, Aaron Silvers, men and women's Royal Rumble winners, go.
Women's at this point, I had to change my pick. I think it's going to be Kairi Sane. Men's, for me, is looking like I hate to say it, but it may be Punk.
JR?
CM Punk, Becky Lynch.
Awesome. And who knows, with Seth Rollins' injury, a lot more can change with that. There's a rumor he could be out now. And if he's out, does the Royal Rumble itself become for the title? That would be probably a big game changer and could change a lot of people's opinions as well.
Hold on a second. I want to change my pick. I forgot about Seth being hurt. If they go forward with that, I pick Gunther.
It's not a bad pick. Not a bad pick. It'd be interesting. I think the smart thing to do, if it's something where he needs time off, they need to let him be like Roman and take some time off until, right at Mania. If he can be ready by Mania, you give him an opportunity to rest up, kind of like a Roman schedule. I don't see what would be wrong with that at all. It's probably not what he wants to do, but it's probably the smartest thing if he is able to go. So we'll see how that all plays out. Again, our next show will be the Royal Rumble prediction show with Tom, myself, and Ella J. Looking forward to that. For myself, Tom, Aaron, and JR, we appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button for us, and we will see y'all next week.